Okay, hello and welcome to you out there on the internets. This is my name is Chris Costello, and I'm bringing you the Kenshu Ask the Expert series quarterly trends live Q&A. Think of this as an after show for the Kenshu Quarterly Trends report, kind of like Talking Dead or Watch What Happens Live, but with fewer zombies and fewer Real Housewives. Chris Hardwick and Andy Cohen were not available, so I am your host. My name is Chris Costello. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing Research here at Kenshu. The Quarterly Trends program that we have, every quarter we do a webinar and release a report that talks about what's going on across the search, social, and e-commerce digital channels. And we wanted to bring in some experts and talk to them about what they saw on the ground. There's what we see, and then there's what individual folks see. So we have some folks from some digital agencies that we're going to talk to, and we're going to kick off with search. And so I'd like to introduce Lauren Bennett. She's the senior manager at Rakuten. And Lauren, if you could just introduce yourself a little bit about your role and what your client portfolio looks like, and then we'll dig into what the data said.
Absolutely. So yes, I'm Lauren Bennett. I work at Rakuten Marketing. I've been there about 5 years, and our portfolio is primarily high-end retailers, apparel, and beauty. So a lot of information around those verticals.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna throw a slide up on the screen to start with. Over our entire search business, we saw 6% growth year over year. We saw a 19% growth over the third quarter. So across our whole book of business, we saw a little bit of an impact from those 6 fewer days that happened between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I know, individual clients prepare differently. And so Lauren, when you see those numbers, I know you said that your clients did a bit better than that. Can you talk about what you saw in terms of just growth from Q3 to Q4 and then compared to, say, last year?
Yeah, I think thinking back for the entire year, we went into that year knowing already that our holiday season was going to be shorter. So we worked a lot with our clients on how to allocate their entire marketing budget that they have dedicated for search a little bit differently. And we actually were able to see an uplift of closer to 30% in spend year over year because of all that planning that we did ahead of time.
Okay, that leads to a really good thing, I think, for folks out there to understand is when you do make that kind of plan, what specific tactics go into? If you've got, hey, I've got 6 fewer days, do you increase your bids? Do you, turn off budget caps and spending limits? How do you go into a high demand period where it's like, oh my God, we got to get this done?
Absolutely. There's a lot of pressure there, we know. But yes, planning before, I think going into 2018 was really the year of automation for bidding. And then 2019 was refining that. We had a lot of learnings in 2018 where we had automated bidding up and running during that holiday period. And the algorithm still needed to grow a little bit, but really in 2019, we were able to keep our automated bidding active and live and continued letting it run. There were some capabilities within Google and then within Kenshu where you can have ceilings and caps and put certain parameters in place so it doesn't go completely out of control. But ideally, we opened our budget caps. We were able to keep our automated bidding strategies online and live and continue running to see the best results.
And was it still heavily focused on those 5 days between Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday? Did you lean heavier into the time after that than you would have in a different year?
Yes. So for retail, what we've noticed is definitely the first 2 weeks building up, we like to set aside more of our upper funnel efforts, primarily with non-brand keywords to have more of that traffic driving and just drive as much traffic to the site for people who are interested in browsing before actually purchasing because they're waiting for their deal. So there's that period. And then when it is go time, we definitely spend the most during those days. Cyber Monday outspent Black Friday still, but that gap is closing a little bit. But then those couple of days after Cyber Tuesday is what we call it. So that Wednesday and Thursday, we really see a dip, but then it picks right back up, and it picked up faster because of the shorter time period. And then we went right into Green Monday. So that's typically how it goes for the retail space.
Okay, you've mentioned some of the algorithmic options, particularly around Kenshu Smart Bidding and or Kenshu Portfolio Optimization, excuse me, and then Google Smart Bidding. How much of what has been your experience with those types of tools? And particularly into Q4, did you see that having a particular impact on things like CPC and click-through rate when you've got that high level of consumer demand and high level of purchase intent?
When we're thinking of different campaign types, I like to start with shopping because shopping's had the biggest change, which is smart shopping. Rakuten has been a huge adopter of this. We launched across a lot of our clients smart shopping before the holiday season, and that has performed really great. We've seen much lower CPCs. Our reach is expanding because obviously smart shopping opens up the network to serve ads on different networks across YouTube and GDN, et cetera. But we've really seen some great performance there. So we've really let Google kind of take ownership of our smart shopping capabilities, but are eager to see what Kenshu's going to come out with to further partner with Google on those. And then as far as any of our other campaigns, I personally like to leverage a little bit of both. I like to have KPO, but I also like to dabble with testing between all the different options within Google as well. So whether it's target CPA or target ROAS, I just kind of test and learn until I find the right mix per client that I'm working on.
Excellent. Yeah, we're seeing automation across all levels of digital, both on the search and the social side. I want to talk a little bit about mobile. We've talked about mobile for forever. It's one of the key drivers of growth in search marketing in general. Do you have any specific best practices around mobile at an agency level, or is it really dictated by the client, the individual strategy? We see spending at like 54% now. How big do you think that can get?
Yes, mobile's a huge conversation piece. As we know, the SERPs are favoring PLAs in the mobile space, followed by the paid ads, and then organic just keeps being pushed farther and farther down. So again, smart shopping is huge for the mobile space. We've been seeing the largest growth there. Whereas, as far as strategy goes, yes, we would have to work very closely with the client. We can still do things like using the if function for mobile specific ads or anything like that. But really what I like the most is leveraging smart shopping and going back to that. It's what's being highlighted the most by Google and, continuing to see that growth. And I think the most interesting part about mobile right now is, yes, it's growing year over year. Yes, we're driving more traffic through mobile, but year over year, we're seeing the revenue also increase at a higher rate. So what it appears to me is that users are getting more and more comfortable with actually purchasing on a mobile device. Whereas a few years ago, there was a large portion of people who were still browsing on mobile, but then completing their purchase on desktop. So I think we're starting to see that gap close, which makes mobile even more important.
Right. That's really true. We've seen that with just in general, mobile user experience, the ubiquity of broadband. We take for granted, those of us who live around digital all the time, that we think everybody has high-speed internet and a phone. But and as that has grown, the comfort level with it, I think, has grown as well. Okay, I want to thank you, Lauren, for those insights. We're going to come back to you a little bit later when we wrap things up, but I want to switch gears now, and I want to bring in Michael Dobson, who's the VP of Social Media Strategy at Horizon Media, and we're going to talk a bit about paid social in Q4. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I actually run the team here at Horizon for social strategy and buying. We have a wide range of clients that I oversee the overall agency in those two specific areas.
Great, great. I want to start off again. We're going to throw up the chart with the trends that we saw in terms of impression growth, click growth, spending growth. Um, and so we've got like about what 20, I think 8% quarter over quarter and 24% year over year in terms of spending growth. That's a combination of, you see clicks and impressions are up too. So a lot of that is volume. Some of that is pricing, but we'll talk about that in a second. How did your Q4 social spending compare to those Kenshu benchmarks against your enterprise and your book of business?
Yeah, we actually aligned really well within what was in the Kenshi report. We were roughly at like 27% quarter over quarter within the Q3 to Q4 variance, which was really nice to see because we have a wide range of clients who are seasonal in regards to like the retail, but also on the retail side of things, but also on the other end of the spectrum, we see some clients who actually pull back because it's not their seasonality. So it was nice to see that increase quarter over quarter still.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to touch on that a little bit because how do you see that variation? There's some by industry if you're in a retail space, for example, but how do you see Q4 shake out by primary goals and objectives? Because obviously social, you've got it's still a heavily branding focused channel, but you've got more and more direct response. Can you talk a little bit about that dichotomy, if I can use a big word?
Yeah, for sure. It's actually a really interesting pivot whenever you start to look at different clients and their buying objectives and their business goals. And we see a wide range with our primary four areas are around direct response with conversions, and then awareness and reach, and then video views is one of the larger goals as well. That those four we specifically end up buying the most against for specific clients. And within some of those, we then pivot into specific things such as like dynamic product ads, where things get a little more specific for someone like a retailer or showcasing a specific type of product that somebody's already engaged with or shown like some type of online behavior that makes them more relevant to that.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that. I want to talk this next bit is going to take a little bit of explanation, but I want to show this is a bubble chart that breaks out a bunch of different social elements by cost on the x-axis, click-through rate on the y-axis, and then just the relative size. And I've circled stories ads, and these are across Facebook and Instagram as well. So generally, what role do you see for stories ads across your social programs, and how does that vary by objective, whether it be direct response or branding?
Yeah, so stories have actually been a really great additional inventory asset for specific brands that we work with. If it's something that's more of a like long-term consideration for purchase to buy, or if it's something that's a little more turnkey for somebody to make a very quick impulse buy, different price points, different considerations for services. It really goes into how a brand wants to interact with the consumer, and stories is one of the great opportunities for people to actually engage with the consumer in a different way, by getting them to take polls or to engage with content to tell a brand what they like or dislike or what they're leaning more towards. And that's where we see some really like more innovative approaches with the way that consumers are actually interacting with stories and being able to leverage that short form content and maximize on that.
Cool. Yeah, I want to emphasize something that you brought up there, just so people were clear on it. So you're saying that it's not even just a retail versus branding or a direct response versus branding. It's different types of retailers maybe approaching stories in a fundamentally different way because of, if you are more of an impulse buy, you might have a quicker call to action than you would for something that's has a longer consideration period. Would that be a correct interpretation of what you just mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think of it as like something as simple as QSR and you're trying to just inform and entice somebody to maybe purchase something with you for their next meal versus if it's something that's in the healthcare industry and it's takes a deeper dive, more awareness, and more consideration for them to actually take whatever that next step is.
Okay. Next, I want to talk a little bit. It's kind of a superset of what Stories does, and that is social video in general. Here, we've seen a little bit more of a slowdown in terms of growth, and we didn't necessarily see retailers and e-commerce vendors or e-commerce advertisers doing as much here in Q4 as they focus on things like DPA and whatnot. So does 1 out of every $3 going to video sound about right to you? And how do what is different about the broader video category than, say, just the Stories format?
Yeah, I think Facebook has been praising video and the growth of video for years now, and I think with YouTube being second with like the actual consumption of video and Facebook trying to maximize both Facebook and Instagram users on being exposed to more and more video, it makes sense that 1 out of every $3 is actually being moved towards video or actually invested that way. With video continuing to grow within other social platforms and it being kind of the primary piece of what's actually in those platforms, I wouldn't be surprised to see it continue to evolve. I think that the really interesting piece, whenever you look at it from like a strategy standpoint, is how you're looking at the use of like short form versus long form, and even short form. What are those teases versus an actual like 15 seconds? So a 5-second piece versus 15 versus a minute long or 3 minutes. And what platforms make sense, what audiences make sense is really how we try to look at that perspective of if we want to do sequential messaging or something of that sort to actually drive more informative messaging within market.
Fantastic. I think that if there's an overarching theme there, it's like not only are all Instagram ads or all Stories ads not the same, all video ads and video objectives are not the same. There's a lot of variation within that particular format.
Yeah.
And with that, I want to thank Michael for his time. Again, we're gonna park you off to the side and bring you back to close things up. But now I want to turn over to what we're calling the e-commerce channel. So e-commerce channel ads, you may hear these called e-commerce marketplace ads. And for that, I want to bring in Stefan Jordev, who's coming to us from Macedonia. We've got the global footprint going here today. He's the director of advertising at Bobsled Marketing. So Stefan, if you could just talk briefly about your role and your clients.
Sure, Chris. So I am the advertising director at Bobsled Marketing. We're a digital marketing agency that works with Amazon sellers and Amazon vendors. And we're providing services in terms of operational excellence, brand protection, organic marketing, and paid advertising.
Cool. And once again, we'll throw some numbers up on the screen for folks. We saw robust growth. We saw in this channel, because it is particularly on the Amazon sponsored listings side, we're still about 3 years in to this as an ad format. So we saw faster growth than we saw in either search or social. And so just broadly speaking, how did Q4 look in this channel for your clients, just in general or relative to those benchmarks?
Yeah, definitely relates to what we see as benchmarks from the Kensho Trends report. I personally found it to be the best Q4 we've had. I think we've mentioned this with Kensho already, but I think this was definitely a Q4 where it was a combination of Amazon being ready for the increased traffic and sellers being much more experienced and more strategic about Q4. I think we had all the sellers we worked with, we had no inventory issues, which has been an issue in the past. We've been very strategic about planning before Q4 arrived and just working on those CPC rates remaining as constant as possible. And I think we actually got to see only a 7% increase in the cost per click rate on all sponsored products, advertisers. And I think that's an unexpected increase compared to the previous Q4s. We actually assigned hashtags to all the updates we worked on during Q4, and we saw very few out of budgets. We had to intervene around bids less than what we had to do before, and I just really think that's a sign of just sellers being ready and more strategic about how we spend during Q4.
That's great. One of the things I want to touch on is even off of Amazon, we see there are product style ads. We talked about DPAs and we talked about shopping campaigns on the search side. What do you see the role of those in the overall picture of getting? It's one thing to have searches that originate on Amazon, for example, but getting people into that ecosystem. Can you just talk a little bit about the kind of the cross-channel impact and leading the horse to water so you can make it drink?
Yeah, absolutely. I really think more and more sellers and vendors are utilizing paid search and paid social to drive traffic to Amazon. Amazon has been doing a great job in making this easy enough for them with the storefront and the Amazon attribution program, which allows you to track sales coming from off Amazon channels. I really think this is a trend that's going to continue to grow. I really do see this being adopted by more sellers and more vendors in the future. One thing I want to point out is we do see slightly lower ROI on this. It does reflect, it doesn't look as good as we do when we compare it to the ad efforts done on Amazon, but that's very logical and to be expected. We are, after all, advertising to people who are on their social profiles or just doing a search outside of Amazon. They're just a little higher in the sales funnel compared to the potential customers we target who are already on Amazon with a strong intent to buy.
Great. Yeah, it's one of those things. Once you get into the multi-channel aspect, you're kind of multiplying. It's multiplicative. It's just the way that works. You mentioned more vendors and more sellers, and one of the other things that we've seen recently was the announcement of Walmart getting into the game on the biddable sponsored listing front. And we conducted a survey last month that pretty clearly shows Amazon and Walmart as the 1-2 punch of the online shopping ecosystem in terms of where people have bought and shopped in the last 6 months. So what do you see as the opportunity both for Walmart specifically and for this as now a multiple marketplace ecosystem? Is this exciting? Is it frightening? Is it like, oh my God, I've got 12 new things to look at?
Well, a combination of all of them. Very exciting, that's for sure. I really am excited to see what Walmart does with paid advertising. I really try to stay away from the comparison trap. I think people are comparing Amazon and Walmart very often these days. I really see them as, for established brands, I really do see them as two different e-commerce platforms. And of course, brands can choose to be on both of them. Just try to increase visibility and just go where the potential customers are. And then comes the frightening part. As you mentioned, we will have to learn some more about the Walmart's advertising channel and how it's going. It is definitely more simplified than Amazon's at this stage. It has some significant differences, especially in terms of how bids relate to CPC rates and stuff. So there will be a learning curve for agencies and Walmart sellers, but I'm very excited about the effect on e-commerce in general, being able to sell on both Walmart and Amazon, where one of them has the highest online traffic and the other one gets most of the offline sales, could be very beneficial for all brands on e-commerce.
Yeah, we're very excited about that here at Kenshu as well. Okay, Stefan, I want to thank you for the e-commerce specific insights, and I want to bring back Lauren and Michael now, and we're going to go quickly around the group, starting with Lauren. And I want to ask, just what are you looking forward to? What are you excited about for either just Q1 of 2020 or this year across your business?
Yeah, continued growth, definitely. Continued automation. I that has completely changed my life personally. Trying to find any way to automate the tasks that we do, so that we can focus more on strategy and focus more of our efforts on fueling the funnel. So not just capturing the demand of, say, brand terms and have our shopping campaigns running, but really expanding that and finding ways to assist throughout the entire journey of each user.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a common thing that I think we get from everything, is that we've got all this increasing complexity, and so the tools are starting to get more sophisticated, and that frees us up as marketers to do more of the things that we like doing rather than just blocking and tackling all day. Michael, anything for you coming up in Q1 in 2020 that you like to share?
Yeah, I think one of the really interesting things, and it kind of plays off of Lauren's nicely, is just the shoppable ad content via social that's going to just grow to be more and more convenient and at ease for consumers, which is going to help drive performance for us as marketers, as well as for the brands to drive a bottom line like return on ad spend. So,
excellent. And Stefan, any parting words for the coming year from you?
Sponsored brands video. I love to see how video will play a role in e-commerce on Amazon specifically.
All right, you heard it here first. I'd like to thank Lauren, Michael, and Stefan for joining us today. I'd like to thank all of you who have tuned in live. If you want more of the information we talked about, all the slides that we have shown on the screen intermittently and possibly chopped off on the edges, you can go to kenshu.com/digital-marketing-trends. That is the quarterly trends hub. There's an infographic. There's all sorts of great content there as well. We will be doing more of these follow-ups to our quarterly findings every 3 months. So if you're interested in participating, please reach out to us here at Kenshu. Once again, my name is Chris Costello. I am at Kenshu here in Chicago. Thank you all for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day. And Lauren, Stefan, and Mike, thanks so much for helping us out on our first one.
Sounds great.
No problem.